people started getting desperate. And when people started getting desperate, um, out of desperation comes creativity. And from creativity, you start getting these people that are from the Bronx and from Brooklyn and from parts of Chicago and Detroit. And you start getting all these people, and you get this thing that is born, which was hip hop. And it was basically an alternative to a lot of that.
A lot of gang.
Right, a lot of that stuff was happening. So you were saying about how the first episode is about gangs. That's what our first episode is about. It's about what led up to that whole.
To really the big bombing.
Yeah.
And graffiti movement.
Well, you got to remember though that most people before they were graffiti writers, they were dancers, they were breakers. Okay, so what happened is you got a lot of people trying to find an alternative to try to be able to make those things happen, and they needed a distraction is what they needed.
One of the things on the first episode that I really thought was tight, that I was liking digging, is when you guys start talking about hitting rooftops, and then the gang scene that you were hitting rooftops and getting exposure. So they start hitting the rooftops. Can you talk about that real quick?
Yeah. So in Chicago, there's like a big thing. We're known for our rooftops because, sure, we painted the trains, we painted the buses, we did streets, but rooftops played a big role because we were able to, you know, really, really take advantage of that canvas space because there was so much of it along the train lines.
And everyone rides the trains, right? That's the fastest way around. Is
Absolutely.
it faster than driving?
Oh, it is, and you can get across the city. But what was dope is because Chicago's always very transit, right? Stations, trains, and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So everything we did revolved around the trains, and the rooftops played a part in that because they were like, okay, well, we're able to reach such an audience, and it was like, I mean, depending on the line, dude, some lines get 300,000 riders a day, some get up to like 1.5 million a day.
I be thinking of shit like that, bro. I put like some slaps right there, fucking in and out, bro. And I'm like, so many motherfuckers be hitting that shit daily. That gang of fools to see. Boom,
so
boom, boom.
when the gangsters started to see what the riders were doing, they were like, "Oh, these fools got it locked. Like they know that like people are gonna see it." They also went up. They went up, and they started painting the rooftops, and we started buying for competition. Some of them, like the Color to Deuces, the Royals, like there was real good, dude. The gang graph was like sign art. It was very well like they had like logos and they had like numbers.
Yeah, that shit looked legit. Some legit productions.
Yeah,
right?
dude, they had full on, and they had like members that were just
the writers,
right,
dude.
They were the artists
hit
of
up
the
the
gang,
spot.
But they figured that out, and they were like, oh snap, like we're gonna take a play out of the writer's book and say, like we're gonna do that because they wanted to get up too.
And they would let it be known that this is our hood, these are our rooftops. Don't be hitting that shit, right?
Well, they call them master walls. So if you're from Chicago, you know that you don't tag a master wall. Like a master wall is like a wall that the specific gang will say, this is like our wall. And like nobody paints it, and we're gonna patrol it, and this is like nobody's ever gonna diss it. And they paint master walls, and if you paint over a master wall, like dude, you better not come around.
Like real quick, do they paint the master wall, or no one paints the master wall?
No, they paint.
They paint. That's their personal wall. Okay.
Yeah, that's their wall, and it'll roll. And they do. Some gangs would have like
lookouts and everything.
Yeah,
that was a sniping on that shit.
That's right, because they kind of knew that once you painted a master wall, that kind of became a target, right? Like if you wanted to diss someone or a rival gang, go diss their master wall. Yeah. So what they used to do is they used to fill
like paint guns or water balloons.
No, they used to fill baby jar food or baby food jars.
Yeah.
Okay.
With ink or paint.
Paint, and they would roll by and they would whip them at the walls and they would splash the walls.
Like a paint gun, yeah.
Because they knew if they got out, they might get popped.
They might get shot.
Right. Yeah. So it was stuff like that, but yeah, you're right. The first episode really is about the environment that kind of led up to that whole movement of like style writing, that whole movement of like what we consider like hip hop graffiti writing. Because before that, It was mostly gang, mostly political, and it was mostly territorial.
Right, right. And one of the things too is as far as the documentary goes, I don't want to say there's like a lot of famous graffiti writers from Chicago. That's not the way I want to phrase it, but there's a lot of graffiti writers that have done dope shit, or are kind of like you said. There's some that are, invented Mortal Kombat. Your homie that painted the first train on the fucking West Coast, kind of some shit like that. Like talk about like that, how people that have $200 million companies now. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
A lot of
so
people did good for themselves. Is what I'm trying to say.
oh, absolutely, and it goes the other way too. There's a lot of guys that didn't make it out, but yeah, absolutely. So, just to paraphrase some of the stuff you were saying, there was, you know,
These are people you have in your documentary, right?
absolutely, yeah, and it's dope because we got to talk about you know what graffiti has offered some of the people, right? Like, some people now that we're adults, there's lawyers, there's doctors, industrial designers, there's all kinds of people that have a graffiti background. But some of the people that you mentioned, it's like they're famous like movie cinematographers, or there's like you said, Johnny Tobias, the guy that created Mortal Kombat.
I think that the other guy too that you said you got the picture from, that was an Air Force captain in fucking.
Oh yeah, yeah, no, Navy.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Some
yeah.
shit like that.
So
And you're like,
high-ranking Navy guy or whatever. He used to be
yeah.
a graffiti writer. He like joined the Navy like right out of like like while he was like 18 or 19, and now he's like retired in Guatemala.
When he collected and
Yeah,
documented all
yeah.
that shit, like
Shout
we're
out,
talking
shout
about.
out to Cy Mars or whatever. He definitely is a collector and documented a lot of that stuff. But no, there's just people that definitely did stuff like like Upski. Upski was like the first hip hop author in the nation, and he did Bound the Suburbs, and now he's running political political PACs and funding political fundraisers and running a $100 million business or whatever it is. More than that. I don't even know, but I don't want to quote it. But
Yeah.
pretty sure it's a lot more than that. And other people who are like professionals and that are really influential, and you can kind of look at them and be like, oh man, that guy was a writer. Who's the other guy you mentioned before? I forget. You said the author, the Navy guy, Mortal Kombat. But there's like famous artists.
Yeah, you said there was a couple of famous
there's
artists
like
who
a
sell
bunch of
paintings for like hundreds of thousands.
yeah, yeah, definitely like famous artists and stuff. But these are all people who had their start, doing that. And these are kind of the stories. And then think about it, for them to be in a position where, as successful as they are, to come back and reminisce and even talk about Graf,
Yeah.
to like be like that was a positive time in my life. Like those are things that are really, really important because Graf transcended, right? And it was a thing that people, I don't care how old you are, man, people love that shit, and that's a beautiful thing, man.
Heck yeah, no, for sure, for sure. Damn, I have my next question ready. I fucking forgot it, bro. Like, so we were talking about, like, not like the people who come out of Chicago. And then in the second episode, I can't think of the name. I don't want to say the wrong name.
Keith Haring?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could you count that as a Keith Haring episode, or?
No, but
It's a big part?
It comes out of it. So there's a part where
I didn't really catch that. What originally made him come to Chicago to do that mural? Did they pay him? Or?
Yeah. So the Chicago Public Schools had a program in 1989 where they were bringing out a bunch of famous artists to do stuff. One of the people they got in contact with, Keith Haring, who we all know, he's from New York fame.
It reminds me of the Tribe Called Quest, like graffiti, like you would see on the Tribe Called Quest videos and all that shit.
Remember he did the Swatch watches back in the day? You don't remember that? He did the Swatch watches. He did a bunch of stuff, but he's a pretty well-known contemporary artist, and I'm pretty sure he's considered one of like the most contemporary modern street artists, like one of the new guys, rather the old guys, that kind of set that whole thing off. He came out with like Basquiat, and he came out with like Futura, and he came out with like days, and
Yeah.
he was like all like these formidable years of like did I say Future, and then, but Kenny Sharf, right? Like all these guys, he was kind of like around that time. Madonna,
Sound like a hitter.
Madonna, and like all those people. Um, but